All right, welcome back to Extraordinary Unlocked. So excited to have my guest here, Enza West. Enza and I actually met each other through a coaching certification program, and Enza's career story was so compelling. I asked her out of the blue, Enza, it's been almost a decade since we talked. Would love for you to share your career story on the pod. So we've got Enza here. Let's dive right in. Enza, thank you so much for joining today and sharing your story. Would love to have you introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for having me, and I can't believe it's been almost a decade. Time does fly by. I am Enza West, and I am the Director of Organizational Development at ENI Health, a total well-being service program.
Love that. Thank you so much for joining today. And the question I always start with is, what was the first job you ever had?
My very first job, I started young. I'm a daughter of immigrants, so we hit the ground running, going to work. So 13, 14 years old, I started working at an ice cream shop,
Okay.
and I thought it was going to be the best job ever, right? Because I was like, now I'm going to get downtown with all the bubblegum ice cream I want, which I did. Turns out I wasn't ready for that level of responsibility at that time, and I was eating more ice cream than serving it. And from there, it evolved over what you would imagine through all of those younger years with retail and things like that. But that was my first job.
Wow. So you go from scooping ice cream, and this is the reason why I had you join, not because of the ice cream, but I remember when we first met, you were in a role where you realized, oh my gosh, I need to move on beyond this place, but feeling a bit stuck. And I would love for you to rewind the tape for us where we
Okay.
first met and give me a little bit of history. Like, what were you doing? How did you get there? And how did you realize I'm actually stuck? Like, I don't know what I need to do next. And now fast forwarding today, like you're in a completely different place and you look like you're thriving. And so tell us a little bit more about how you got to where you're at today.
So the context of that is through that journey, like most of us, we get out of school, we're trying to figure things out, who we are, who's our work identity, who's our personal identity, who do we want to be, what do we need to learn. And I started at an organization that served me well through many seasons of my life. And I started there as an executive assistant, actually customer service, then an executive assistant, where I served C-suite leaders. And I learned a lot. I highly recommend that as a career choice for many people, a very great respectable position. But also if you're someone who is invested in an organization that you want to learn more about it, you want to continue to grow within the organization, that's a great place to be in order to know the ins and outs, right? And the guts of an organization, how it works, how all the departments connect and all the things. And so I did that for quite some time. It served me really well. I worked with a lot of great people. I learned a lot of things. It took me through my time period. I became a mom and I was able to have a lot of flexibility there and reduce my hours and that whole entire season of life. And then as the seasons change, right, things change. My kids needed me less, and I started to get bored, to be honest, right? And anxious and wanted to do more. I had more to offer. And what happens oftentimes in, I think, those sorts of roles in these sorts of organizations, it's a very male dominated organization. And I, by no means, I'm going to pummel on the male uh, people, but it's just about it was a different kind of culture and mindset. And so there was a lot of things to contend with there. There were that glass ceiling piece. And there was a piece where once you're in any kind of support role, I think that some individuals have a harder time seeing you past those roles. And so that kind of led me to frustration, trying to figure out what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And that I always had a natural desire to be in the well-being space. It's my jam, whether we're talking about physical wellness, emotional, mental, all of that. It inspires me. I like it. It energizes me. And so I did I think a lot of people should do is explore that, right? Explore what speaks to you and is there a way that you can sort of capitalize on that within the role that you're in. So that's what I did for a little while, kind of satisfy myself and get more experience. So I helped create their wellness program, and it's just two or three people. Um, Exchanging some recipes and some tips, a long time ago. And it grew into this really great, robust program that is super impactful and effective even today. So proud of that. Then I also started at the Culture and Inclusion Council, which was DEI before DEI was a thing. And so went through all that. And then where you and I kind of connected here. So that was part of my journey. Lots of great things that I learned, having a good time with it. Wasn't quite enough. I decided that I really wanted to lean in on my learning, development, and mentoring tendencies. And that meant coaching for me. I really wanted to help people. I'm by no means a therapist, although people do like to talk to me all the time. But, as you and I know, we all kind of cross paths here at the CAP Institute, which is great,
Yes.
where I got my coaching certification. And it was so great to partner with you and meet you. It was the maiden voyage for all of us on what
Right.
we were doing and who we were gonna be, right?
Yes.
So that's kinda like what led me in this direction. Yeah.
So you're the executive assistant and you're doing that, you're going through the seasons of life, and you talked about this frustration point where you're like, "Oh my gosh," and you even used the word glass ceiling. And I wanted to dig in a little bit more there. We're gonna get to where you're at too, but what started the frustration? What was that? And then even the glass ceiling part, would love to hear a little bit more about that.
So, the majority of the decision makers and leaders were all male. It's a I'm trying not to call out the organization altogether. Great organization. I'm friends with everyone still, no fault of it, and it's just the way life unfolded. And as I started to have my one-on-ones with my boss at the time, who's a great guy, saying, "Listen, I want to explore other things. I'm frankly I'm bored. I can do this job with my eyes closed.
Yes.
Thank you for all the opportunities and the flexibility, and it's been great, but I'm ready to do more. I have so much more to offer, and I'm growing, and I'm just not growing here within this
Yeah.
piece."
Got it.
And I was looking at all sorts of different roles, it wasn't just in the well-being space, it was any kind of elevated space. And um he listened and he understood and he gave me some tips, put yourself out there, join committees and do presenting on different topics and things like that. And that was great, but it just wasn't enough.
Yes.
I was just spinning my wheels. I would apply for other jobs within the organization. I knew I was qualified for, and it was still just it was almost so what I didn't know at the time that I know now is that I was giving my power away and allowing these people to determine what my value was,
Yeah.
what I could bring to the table, what my worth was, and what my confidence level should be, right? So I would just work even harder then, right? The door would close. I'm resilient. Okay, fine. Going to roll up the sleeves. I try even harder, not
Yeah.
only in my work, but in all other avenues, trying to get myself seen in a different light, which are all things I think anybody should do. But what I started to realize over time was that they were just never going to be able to see past the fact that I was a female in a support role and that could never possibly do anything other than that. That I was really great at what I did, but I wasn't going to be able to do more of a leadership role or something like that, which I, of course, disagreed with. So that was a struggle often. And finally, at one point, there was an opportunity came along, and I was put into a role where I was actually in charge of that wellness program and employee engagement. And what was funny about that was I was so excited about this role. It was all the things that I loved, right? And I loved doing. But what I started to notice over time was that the reoccurring theme of you're just a support person kept showing up.
Got it.
So the respect that I think should have been there, the authority to make some decisions and things wasn't there. The confidence in my work on some level, it was there in my work, but it wasn't in the trajectory of the programs. And I kept getting handed more and more responsibilities that, frankly, were more supportive than they were actually in a leadership role.
Yeah.
So they were trying to get a little bit of all the best worlds at the same time. And I realized that it wasn't going to change. It's just like when you're in a relationship, like a personal relationship, and you do all the things and you keep trying and you go on more dates, talk to this person, that person, and you start to really the writing's on the wall that this is just
Yeah.
never probably going to align in the
Yeah.
way that is going to be satisfying for you. That you have to really start to consider other things.
Yeah.
And that's what I had to do. So it was a tough realization. I'd invested a lot of years, a lot of
Yeah.
energy, a lot of my time, a lot of my work and my growth in this organization and the people in it. We become complacent too, right? It's safe, even though it's not what we want. It's still safe and comfortable, or you think it is, right? And then life smacks me in the face. What happens to a lot of us is change shows up even when we don't want it. And
Yes.
even though it sounds like I want to change, I did. I didn't get the change, or at least at the time, I didn't get the change that I thought I wanted. So there was some restructuring,
Okay.
and I was restructured under another individual, more along the lines of the DEI work. And this individual, we were not on the same page, and she ended up being actually a bully in the workplace,
Oh, wow.
not a nice person. So the signs kept showing up for me that this doesn't work for you here anymore. It's time to really walk up to this. And I was trying really hard not to walk up to that answer and to do something else. And it became so stressful, me trying to show up, to do more, to show more, every possible way, personally, professionally, that it was impacting my mental and emotional state, right? So success, it shouldn't cost you your sanity.
Mm,
And
that's a great line, by the way.
thank you, because it's so true, and it does you start to feel it, starts to chip away, and it doesn't show up all at once, right? It chips away little by little by little. Before you know it, it's not just my eye twitching, it's my whole face twitching, and that's when I know. I'm like, "No, you don't have to burn out to level up." That's unnecessary. No one should have to beg to be seen and respected and valued, and so I recognized how much it was impacting me on a personal level, on on an emotional and health level in my personal relationships. So did what any person would do, and you start looking elsewhere, which I did. And I'm glad I did it. So all of this was a catalyst for good things.
Yes.
But something to remember here is that it doesn't always, it's not Success and getting where you want to be is not linear, right? It's going to have a lot of zigzags.
Yeah.
So I leave this organization. I do find another role in the wellness arena, and I was really excited about it at another great, respectable organization here where I live in upstate New York. And I was so excited about it.
Mm.
Everyone was great. And over time, what I started to realize is I was a little catfished in this role. It wasn't exactly what it was proposed to be to me. And the leaders uh, started to kind of show a different side of themselves as well. So, what I noticed is the same sort of behaviors that were happening in my past organization was showing up here as well. And so what that meant was I felt like I had to try even harder. Now, I'm a working girl. I'm going to always give you 110% anyway. But there's that point where you're going above and beyond 24/7, and I felt myself needing to do that. Not just in my work, but just in being seen and being liked and being understood too. I was just trying to be understood. I'm not a threat to anyone here. I'm just trying to do a great job.
Right.
And it just I learned all these lessons from my previous employer where I spent 2 plus decades and thought to myself, "Well, I'll be damned. I am not going to have gone through all of that to only come to this place and
Yeah.
have and relive those same lessons all over again." So, it didn't take me 2 plus decades to recognize this was not the right fit for me, not the right alignment. It took me 9 months, and
Wow.
I realized, you know what? I'm not giving them the power of my life and what it looks like and how it feels every day and what my value is and what my confidence should be and what I have to give. I know what that is. I've done the internal work on that. And so I'm going to take myself elsewhere. And so I did the same. And, this is a lesson on resiliency for all of us out there, too, because once you've gone through all that darkness and you've lived in that terrible, terrible gray area, which is the magical area. That's where you're still stuck in where you're at, unhappy, but you don't know what's coming next, but you know you're doing something else. That's where the growth happens. That's where the magic happens, especially if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other towards what your goals are. And I can talk a little bit about that too. But that area is uncomfortable. That's the growth area. But I'd been there before. I had walked that dark valley. And so I knew that I could do it again. And I was resilient and that I was not going to be told who I was and what my worth and my value was. And you know what, by the way, our jobs don't just pick us. We pick them, right? It has to be a place that you feel seen, that you feel valued, that you have opportunity for growth if that's what you want, and that you're respected. And if that doesn't fall in alignment with you, then it's time to look elsewhere. That's just like the same thing as in, our personal relationships, same answer. So I started looking for new work. And lucky for me, I came across a role that I have now, which I absolutely love. It is in the well being space. I get to be creative. I get to share my stories, my experiences, my coaching side, teach people how to look within themselves and see that they have something great, unlock that extraordinary piece within themselves that is there too, that they may not realize is there. And that's in terms of change management and all the corporate talk, but also our well being stuff. So, one of the things that I think was helpful for me, and Eugen, I'm sure you know all about this, is the CAP Institute was founded by Valerie Burton. She is the best thing ever. I highly recommend everybody following her on LinkedIn or social media. Just what a super insightful person full of wisdom. And she does this annual vision board exercise that I've taken advantage of almost every year. There's been some years I've fallen off, but what a great exercise, and so great that I decided to start to do that not only for myself, but also in the work that I do with others. And that allows you to, it's not just something you do in January to figure out what does 2026 look like. It can be done at any time of year. It's in your season of life that needs change. And that's where you identify what is my personal mission and vision. What are the qualities that I have? What are the traits that I have? What is the identity I want to have? What do I have to offer? And how do I want to incorporate that in my life personally and professionally? What is in my value system? How do I want my life to look and feel every single day? And, that's right down to the details, right? Am I driving to work? Am I hopping on a podcast? Am I writing a book? Am I living with two cats and a dog? Am I by the beach? It's down to that granular detail. And we have a vision board exercise with these folks that I learned from Valerie Burton, and extremely helpful because as you go through that and identify what all of those things are for you. You identify the things that you want, the things you don't want, the things that you're willing to do, the things you're not willing to do. You identify any kind of growth gaps you may have. So if you want to, you identify a goal for the next 6 months or a year or whatever it is for you. What is the gap here that I might have that I need to work on? Nobody's perfect, right? We all have growth gaps, and different seasons of lives show us different gaps. It might be focus. Maybe you need to incorporate focus time. Maybe it is more support. Maybe you need to do more networking. Perhaps it's consistency, showing up for yourself more often. Whatever it is for you, identify what those gaps are. Write this all out, by the way. Pen to paper is incredibly not only therapeutic, but magical. And then commit to working on just one gap at a time and once a week, right? Whether it takes you 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, just something that you will do once a week towards closing that gap and towards the goal. And towards your mission and vision. All of that is feeding back into what you've identified to be your mission and vision, your personal mission and vision of your life, how you want it to look, how you want it to feel, and what you stand for. And that serves as your internal compass because, as we know, change is going to show up. Stress is going to show up at our doorstep. We don't have any control over that. What we do have control over is our response to it. We don't have to react to it. We can intelligently respond to it. And when we're kind of lost, maybe you're in the gray area, maybe you're in the beginning of understanding, wait, this is not where I'm supposed to be, and I'm not sure where to go. If you have that work done, you can come back to it. You can come back to what is your personal mission and vision that serves as your personal compass. So as things throw you off track, you can come back to your internal compass and say, okay, let's get back to what I've identified matters to me, and then take the necessary steps that I need to move forward. And they're little steps. None of us overhaul our lives overnight, right? And you shouldn't. It doesn't happen overnight. It's taking small, incremental, impactful steps that are realistic and in ways that you can manage expectations for yourself and for others.
This is a masterclass, and what you just unloaded. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. This is something that has unlocked inside of you. And it's clear that as I listen to your story, and this is the first time I've actually heard you unfold your story, the level of frustration, almost like banging your head on the wall, hoping for a different reaction or a different result, different outcome. And over again, you pushing forward, knowing that there is a conviction that I have so much more to offer, and people are giving some crumbs, like, okay, well, you can do this and do that. And you are like, it's not enough. That's not who I am. And finally leaving a place of 2 decades, 100% agree. You get comfortable. You know every morning what to expect and what's going to happen and how you're going to operate. And you realize I actually need to leave this place so that I can become the person that I know I am. And that kind of internal confidence, I would say many people don't have. They are trying to form and fit into, well, what does that job description say? What do I actually have to accomplish and execute? And I love it that you go to a new company and it starts off, hey, just like the honeymoon phase. It's great. Everything's awesome. No one can do any wrong.
Yep.
And you quickly realize, whoa, 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 there, this is what I had just came from. And it's the exact same thing that's happening now, and within 9 months, you didn't wait 2 decades, within 9 months, you say, "It's time to go." I have a conviction, I know, and the courage, like, most people may have a conviction, and they feel that, and they may be banging their head on the wall for years and maybe decades, but all of a sudden, they just get complacent.
Yeah.
You, on the other hand, not only have the conviction, but the courage to say, "I am more. I
Yes.
am so much more than this." And now being in the position that you're in, like what you just described, the vision board, the programs that you offer at your company, it is helping not only unlock your gifts and talents and being the best for yourself and for your organization and for the world, it is now doing that for other people consistently. Giving, you just gave a tool, and listeners, I don't know if you heard that, extraordinaires, doing a vision board, getting really clear on what you want, what your
Yeah.
mission and values are. So powerful. Enza, I'm this is the first time where I'm like, wait, what's I even she's already unfolded everything. So I'm gonna ask, what's it like today living in this current reality? You're living, no other term to say, living your best life and
Yeah.
doing what you love and unlocking extraordinary in yourself and others. What is the experience for you?
I would say, you kind of attract what you demand and you want. So if you can build that self awareness to what it is that you do want, what your standards are, what you're willing to accept, and what you're not going to accept, things start to flow your way. And so today, it is. I am living my best life. It does help to be and I attract it, a great team. It helps to have a great team, people who
Yeah.
see you, who value you, who respect you, who understand what you bring to the table. And that makes my life easier. If the answer had been different, I would have done well, you know what? It's time to find a new identity, a new work, trying a different hat. And I know I can do this again. And I carry that with me even now today. I just had this great conversation with someone yesterday where we've gone through many zigzags in our careers and some similarities here too. I'm sure many of your listeners out there can identify and relate to a lot of what we talk about. And know that that's going to happen. And when that a change needs to happen, it's okay. It will be okay in the end because what I'm experiencing today is the best version of myself so far in this season. I'm sure there's many other versions still to be had. This isn't the end. This is life. We continue to grow. But, you know, if you're willing to put in the courageous work to really walk up to what your circumstance is, what you want, and be daring enough to just really go for it and try it, even in just small steps, you're going to see that things start to change, things start to turn around. And there is another side of it. There is a happier ending, right? So I was a little happier in my honeymoon phase in that place until I realized it wasn't so great. And then I moved on. And now I'm in this wonderful role that, uh, has been great for quite some time, and I really value the work that I do. It's from an altruistic standpoint. I get to share with all of our customers all the greatness that is within themselves,
Mm,
whether it's through, my communication presentation, my stress management presentation, my work life balance. Perhaps it's navigating relationships, all of those pieces. To me, yes, we're delivering them to organizations and their employees, but you can really take that on from a professional or personal mindset, right? So you can always apply all those different strategies and experiences personally and professionally. And don't be scared. There is another side to you're stuck. You don't have to stay stuck, right? Many people are like, oh boy, well, I have all this time and, you know, um, all the, investments, I have a retirement, I have this. Listen,
Yes.
I get it, right? Grew up poor, daughter of immigrants. I completely understand working hard, trying to make sure you're making ends meet. But if you can just look within what you have to offer, sometimes you'll find that there's opportunity within the organization you're already in, and that's great, right? That would be a win win. Sometimes you'll find that it's outside of that. And guess what? That is also going to turn out just fine. It'll be great. Just don't give up. Don't devalue yourself and not show up for yourself, right? Because if you can't show up for yourself, who's going to show up for you, right? You
Yeah.
have to at least do it for you.
And it's so powerful. And so many people, as you're speaking about the fear of, well, I got all these financial situations, I've got this, I've got that. And so many of my previous guests, I had one guest that would just resigned, just said, "This is it, I'm done," and was able to get a new job very quickly and did that twice, multiple times in her career. And then I had another person just say, "There is a cost to doing nothing." And
Yes.
you're describing right now is exactly that. You are
Yes.
robbing yourself of this freedom, of the alignment. And I'm going to be honest, Enzo, talking to you about where you're at today, there's a sense of joy that I'm experiencing, a sense of fulfillment, a sense of this is what I was made to do. And I'm going to continue to do this. I may do that at this organization, but I'm going to continue to do it whatever organization I'm at and continuing to unlock extraordinary. And I just absolutely love that. Thank you so much for sharing your story today.
But my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I hope,
So,
somebody finds something valuable out of our conversation today that helps them get unstuck, be a little more inspired, a little bit more motivated. Just remember, we're all resilient. And if you just try and just put one foot in front of the other and start small, you'll be surprised at what you can accomplish.
yeah, I love that, Enza. I was going to ask you what piece of advice would you give? You already gave it before I asked the question. So
That's
look
because we're like this, okay? We're right there with each
one
other.
step ahead of me. So, Enza, thank you for sharing this amazing career story. And you're not done yet. And I think that's the best part is that you're like, and I have more chapters, identities, lives, and things that I want to continue to experience. And so this is the part where we get to the lightning round. I'm going to ask you some questions that you did not know ahead of time. So my first question is this: what's on the vision board today? I'm really curious. We're only into April 2026, and maybe give us one of those goals on the vision board that you're like, this is going to happen in 26.
Well, it's funny you should say that because I decided that one of the things I would do was stretch myself a little bit more in being seen more. So things like today, being on your podcast. I was also on another podcast a few weeks ago, kind of talking about the well being space. So that's the funny magic of it all. I would have never thought that this was what I was going to be doing. You approached me, and it just kind of evolved. So if this is not inspiration or validation for you folks out there, I don't know what is. Do that exercise for yourself.
That's amazing. I did not even know everybody. I had no idea this was on the vision board. This not preempted or anything. It just wow, that came to fruition. What is a wellness practice that you do today that you're like, wow, this really has changed me personally, and I recommend it to people all the time?
I would say my core practice would be mindfulness, and that comes in various forms. So, mindfulness in taking walks, especially when I'm feeling stuck or confused or frustrated, or mindfulness in a meditation for the same reason could be only 10 or 15 minutes long. And what all of kinda does is puts us in a third party position where we're looking at ourselves from the outside in, and it changes our self-concept and how we talk to ourselves, how we think about ourselves, and helps us explore our thoughts and emotions without any kind of judgment, and really kind of helps us break down um, things that you're contending with, whether it's a frustration or just confusion or focus, whatever it may be. Sometimes just simply stress, right? And it just helps us kind of clean out the gunk. And another practice I would say would be also journaling. And I know that sounds kind of like annoying or woo woo or cheesy, but it really does help just writing it out, even if it's just once a week.
Yeah, no, I actually have a journal. It's a 5-year journal where they actually give you 4 or 5 lines only, and you do it. I learned this from an author that I, read, I forget his name right now, but he does a 5-year journal and looks back at it, and it's so cool. I'm like, "Oh, I wanna do that." So thank you for the recommendation. The last question is going way back into the time machine at your first job of scooping ice cream. What is a scoop of ice cream? There's 2 questions. Scoop of ice cream that you now detest after you've scooped it so many times, but also a scoop of ice cream that you're like, "To this day, I still love it."
Oh, that's a good question, a fun question. So, sweets are my jam. I love sweets. So that's where, my career started. Maybe my next chapter is, opening a bakery. I don't know.
Hey, okay,
I contended with that idea as I explored my identities.
awesome.
Was I going to bake cookies or what? So, to answer your question though, I would say I would not want bubblegum ice cream today. What I loved then that I still love today is pistachio. Yeah,
Ooh,
maybe that's
alright.
the Italian in me, I don't know.
I love that. And, it's been an absolute joy
Thank you
for
so much for
you.
having me.
Absolute joy hearing your story, unpack it, live it, and being able to unlock extraordinary in others. Extraordinaires. If you want to get in touch with Denza, how do they do that?
I would say direct email me to my personal email, Enza West, ENZAWEST @gmail.com.
Excellent. Enza, thank you. It's been a joy. We'll talk soon.
Thank
Bye,
you so
everybody.
much.